Good afternoon. Welcome back to United TV. I've seen lots of stories about Ugarte this morning, about how much Manchester United want, which clubs are interested in him. Also, links discussing Tonali exit from Newcastle, Tonali being potentially involved in some sort of cash plus player bid by Manchester United. We know he would be expensive. So that's one thing I'm going to go into today. I want to just cover this though, because Fabrizio posted this literally a few minutes ago as we were setting up the stream just before. So it's not the main topic, but it's something that's just been broken by Fabrizio. Is that Mainoo has agreed a new deal at Manchester United that's set to be signed. This contract's going to be until 2031, improved salary. It's going to be made official before the end of the season, so not long. I think a lot of people are speculating that it's going to be about 120k, but it looks like that he's going to agree a new deal. It just needs to be signed. So Kobe Mainoo is going to be part of Manchester United for at least another 5 years, which I think is good news. Very good performance last night. Clearly, a player Manchester United want to build around. Clearly, a player that just turned 21. He's going to be a big part of Manchester United's next few seasons, I'm sure. And maybe what we're seeing now is that transfers can't be necessarily agreed at this stage of the season, but maybe Man United are putting in the building blocks regarding making sure Mainoo stays at the club, which is a good thing. So that's a bit of news that's actually happened. And again, I think occasionally we had a story about Maguire extending recently, so that was going to be always on the cards. I think there was speculation about Mainoo maybe a few months ago, but obviously things have changed massively. So that's probably good news for most people watching as well. And as the D Hexion said, very good news. Yeah, very good news with that one. I mean, it's always on the cards, wasn't it? So Alex says, awesome news, player on the up, fulfilling his potential. I mean, it's hard to think that he's only 21. And given like last night for me, the move that almost set up the goal early on was really good. So it seems that Man United are maybe putting a few things in place, like extensions for Maguire, new contract for Mainoo. It's about probably looking at what things are kind of up in the air. That these are some loose ends that needed to be tied off, and it doesn't affect Manchester United's transfer policy next season. They were going to be looking at strengthening across the board anyway. So this is good news, and it's probably good that we've seen a few things like this get wrapped up. I'm trying to think. I'm not sure if there's any other players that have potentially got an extension in line. I think that's probably it in terms of like players that are at the club that are going to be extended. But no, I think yeah, good news. If anyone's got any comments on Mainoo, let me know. But I think we've like basically talked about this a few times. Say 5 year deal. Welcome, Ryan. Yeah, 5 year deal for Mainoo. Again, this is kind of how Manchester United should operate. A player comes through the academy. You're on an academy contract for a certain amount of time. You prove yourself to be good enough in the first team. And I think Mainoo has done that. The results have been very good over the last few months. And okay, even though that sometimes Man United doesn't play particularly well, Kobe Mainoo was injured for Leeds. Look at the difference when he came back. That better performances, 2 wins. We're almost guaranteed Champions League football now. So I think tie down Kobe Mainoo, and then we can rebuild around him. So I think there's a lot of positives with that deal as well. I think the Maguire one was kind of similar. It's just that at the moment United need to try and keep some players at the club. So looking at this, no negatives regarding this one. So yeah, happy. If you consider this as well, just one last point about Mainoo. Look at what's happened with like James Garner, Alvaro Fernandez, and when they've kind of fallen out of favour with a head coach or manager, they've disappeared from the club, and we've kind of regretted it. So no, it's good that United. We almost had the same situation. We could have been selling Mainoo in the summer for a not big deal. We haven't done that. We've taken this different route. So I think a lot of positives. So I think a lot of credit with Carrick and the coaches and the team in actually making sure this we've kind of drawn to this conclusion. So I'd say start off for the next decade and say yeah, good timing, like good timing, I suppose, regarding this one, good timing. But yeah, the fact Maine's like going to be part of the team, I'm very happy with this one. Ian said you're driving. Yeah, be careful when you're driving and talking about Man United. So I just wanted to say Kobe is deserving of the contract. He ran the midfield last night, and say just one point. You think there's no chance of a swap? I hope there is, but I hope there is. But I hope Manchester United are looking at this seriously. So to go into the situation regarding Tonali, because this is the story where I've seen about four different stories today, and just to put this out there as well. One of the stories quite recent, about 24 hours, 48 hours ago, talking about Newcastle. putting Tonali on the transfer market ahead of the upcoming window. I think most people look at Newcastle. They know that Newcastle are looking at one significant exit. It's most likely Tonali or Gordon is going to be the big player that leaves the club this summer. Potentially both. Like if they get good offers, they potentially might go for that because they're looking at to try and change their team a lot, and they're looking at a bit of a reshift and what they can do. But also, Tonali is a player they can cash in on. I think Gordon as well, and then I think Newcastle might feel they can get adequate replacements and maybe actually get a decent amount of players in. And to look at it from Manchester United's point of view, they've also said that Agate is allowed to leave. The figure here is around, say, 25 million. That's put on there by Samuel Locker. So this is one source saying 25 million. I did see another source which said that there's interest from Newcastle for Agate, and for some reason, there's been a lot of sources. I mean, I'm kind of questioning it as a Manchester United fan. I kind of question why Newcastle are linked to Manchester, no, are linked to Agate a lot, but it seems to be that the links are there; they won't go away. And at the moment, there's a couple of teams interested. I mean, the fact that there's a race for Agate does feel a bit strange from my point of view. But if this is true, then Juventus say lead the race for Agate. It might mean that Agate might prefer a move to Italy, which could be that does make sense as well. And Agate could be used cash plus player deal with Tonali, a potential target to head to Old Trafford. This is actually one journalist that put it out there. There's another journalist as well talking about this as well, saying that there's interest, like the interest from Newcastle for Tonali. It seems to be there apparently, according to a few sources. It seems to be there, and I just saw this comment from Ryan say, "Are you the only fan that likes Gordon? At the price they want, you might possibly be, but again, no, it's everybody's got different opinions. It's absolutely fine. It's absolutely fine what and which players you want at the club. I don't think we're going to disagree regarding this one. I'd say last you heard is that United walked away from trying to get Tonali. I think that's what we've. I think that's the story I saw a couple of days ago as well, Yarli. So I'm just saying that this was discussed this morning with not this journalist as well, because I'm using this example on screen because I got a photograph, but the other sources I saw were some independent journalists and a couple of other people talking about it, and they were saying that Manchester United, the interest from Newcastle for Agate is apparently genuine. I mean, it depends on how much that maybe what they're looking at is a player that's maybe somewhat limited for what Manchester United need. Maybe Newcastle see him as going to be someone that could actually do a different role in Newcastle. Newcastle already have we know they have a different style, different setup. They've already got some good players in their team in different positions to us. Maybe they're looking at a situation where whatever Agate is asked to do in Newcastle, maybe it works better. But I don't know. That if Newcastle want Agate, that's really their problem to sort out how it works. But the situation apparently is if Newcastle are interested, Manchester United have apparently said 35 million gets the deal done immediately, which I find it a bit strange that 35 million, that's quite high. And I think United would be taking a little bit less than that to get the deal done. But no, 35 million, I think most people look at, say, Agate as he cost 42 million pounds with 50 million euros. I think if United are looking at this, then yeah, it's let's say when did we last see a swap deal in England? Probably an actual swap was probably Alexis Sanchez and Mkhitaryan with United and Arsenal. I'm trying to think of other examples that this kind of makes sense, I guess, because United would have to pay. It would be for Newcastle if Newcastle are looking to replace Tonali with a couple of players, and if they feel like Agate can do at least at least like one role in the Newcastle midfield, maybe they're looking at that as a way that then they can spend the extra money on different players. So in terms of like the valuation of Tonali, it's about 100 million. That's kind of the price we've seen. But I think Manchester United would be very reluctant to spend that sort of price. So if you're looking at if Manchester United value Agate at say 25 to 35, which is quite difficult to guess how much it actually cost, maybe you're then looking for the difference would be maybe 60 million, possibly. But I don't know. This is why I've been talking about this, but we have seen this in the past where there was the links regarding swap deals recently. There was a lot of links with Juventus with Sancho, and there was about three players that are apparently offered to Manchester United for Sancho. I think one of them was Vlahovic. It might have been Douglas Luiz, and possibly one other player. So there has been like rumours in the past. There has been, I think there has been offers on the table, but I think Manchester United and Juventus both probably realised that there's probably a better option actually to. We tried to move Sancho somewhere else without getting somebody else we didn't really want, and I think Juventus were also going down the same route. So it's not common, but it is probably this is probably the highest profile one, like the Alexis Sanchez Mkhitaryan, and that's the highest profile one I can think of. But there always has been like a few things in the past where maybe if you go back, I mean Manchester United did sort of a swap deal plus cash to get Andy Cole. So if you remember, the name escapes me, but we sent a winger to Newcastle who actually did very well when Newcastle nearly won the league. I can't remember off the top of my head, but there has been swap deals in the past, and Manchester United have taken this route, and it probably depends a lot on Agate. And my gut feeling is that Agate might favour a move away from the Premier League. So if you're looking at where Agate could possibly play next season, I'd imagine based on this season he might favour. It's a bit like Xerxes. I think they might favour a different league. So, I mean, again, that's up to Agate. If Agate's got if there is a serious offer from Newcastle for Agate, I think it's interesting. And I think one of these things that sometimes happens. Keith Gillespie. Cheers, Danny. Appreciate that. Keith Gillespie. I thought Keith Gillespie was a good player, but he was valued about 1 million. So it was 6 million plus Keith Gillespie to get Andy Cole. So United have done this historically. Sanchez is the most recent one. Sancho for Vlahovic or Douglas Luiz was the one that was on the cards or was discussed seriously by Juventus and Manchester United. But again, I think it was about getting Sancho to agree where he wants to go, and also Manchester United having to take on Vlahovic or Douglas Luiz, and they weren't particularly keen. So in the short term, it might have been not a bad deal to get Vlahovic or Douglas Luiz, but long term, it's not ideal to have a player at the club you don't really want that was on quite a reasonable salary. So it made sense in that regard. With this one, Agate clearly, he's got quite a long football career ahead of him if he makes the right decision. And Newcastle would feel a little bit like, I mean, Joe Linton was a failed striker at one point, then he became an effective midfield player. Are they looking at Agate as being, if you pay 25 million and you get someone like Agate, then the expectations are going to be lower. Manchester United, we bought Agate thinking he was going to be at least the first team regular, if not, at least in the rotation, playing every other game. But I think it's become clear to most fans that Agate probably, it's not going to work out, and we need to move him on. So I kind of thought my guess would be, so remember Keith Gillespie was good, like very good for Newcastle, nearly won the league. Um, no, but if you look at this from a Newcastle point of view, there is sometimes with Agate, he seems to be one of these players that also, because of his representation by Mendes, the super agent, quite often there seems to be there's something going on regarding like Agate moving clubs quite regularly and not being particularly successful. Welcome to the chat, Mama Flossie, big Newcastle fan. I know that I knew this would be your answer, and I know I would be honestly amazed to find a Newcastle fan that thought this was a good deal. I think what we're going to be seeing here is that the expectation would be a player plus cash. Obviously, when I said new swap deal, I've got a limit of how many characters, etc., I can put regarding this one. But if you're looking at the situation, how much money should Manchester United offer? Because I think you'd be getting Agate plus enough money to buy at least another good player. I mean, if Man United paid you 55, 60, like plus Agate, you could effectively buy like a very good player that possibly could replace Agate anyway. So you could be looking at maybe buying Alex Scott or buying Joe Gomez or even Belieber would be possibly obtainable, but you could be looking at Angela Stiller, that sort of price point. So you could replace Tonali with two football players, and maybe that's kind of the way Newcastle might be thinking of. Like you said, Xerxes, they can have. Yeah, I don't think we can sell. Like, if we manage to get Agate to Newcastle, I think we should just walk away quickly before they change their mind. I think if we got Xerxes in the car as well, I think Newcastle might start thinking, hang on a minute, like I think we can do one deal, but if we could swap Xerxes plus Agate for Tonali, then that might be great. But I think the valuation might be a bit low from our point of view. So look, what would be a good like D Hexion says you think if we can sell Agate, you'll be amazed. I think it's one thing I saw today, and you might be amazed by this, but Trabzonspor are pretty keen on on keeping Nana and as a full time deal. So Manchester United and Onana, I think Trabzonspor genuinely want to pay for him. United have to sell Onana for 19 million to avoid a financial loss. It seems achievable. Like they can pay quite big salaries in Turkey, so I think Onana's gone. I don't think we're going to get crazy money, but we're going to get something. And yeah, if Agate's the answer, it makes you think, what on earth is the question? Because if the question was what's a big downgrade from Tonali that's going to make Newcastle fans though sort of start protesting against the owners? Then it's probably Agate is the answer. But I remember when Andy Cole got sold, Newcastle fans were outraged, and at the time, it's still it's still a bad decision, isn't it? I think Newcastle were getting Alan Shearer, and you look, but still Andy Cole really strengthened Manchester United. So I think from a fan perspective, if you're a Newcastle fan and you're looking at selling Tonali or Gordon, like any of those players, I think that it's going to be disappointing if they play for rival teams, isn't it? If they play for teams in the Premier League, like I think with Tonali, there was probably a hope or expectation from some fans that maybe if he leaves Newcastle, he's going to be going to Serie A. I think with like the way football's going, I think Tonali just costs too much for a Serie A team. So yeah, oh yeah, cheers, Howard. I just saw the comments as well. When I'm doing a live stream, sometimes names just completely vanish from my head. I try and remember about, I don't know, 50 midfield targets, but I'm forgetting Gillespie is disappointing. I thought Keith Gillespie was a good player for Man United, but Andy Cole's obviously a legend as well, so it kind of worked out a little bit as well. Now, maybe a question for Mama Flossie in the chat, which I think it's great to get a Newcastle fan involved, is do you think from a Newcastle fan perspective, and you'll have more knowledge than I do, 100%, that do you think that Newcastle are going to sell two players? Like you got Gordon, you got Tonali. I read an article maybe about 2 days ago, and it was almost, actually might have been on the weekend, whereas Eddie Howe was pretty much laying down the law to the players and going, look, if you want to stay and fight for the club, brilliant. But if you want to go, make it be known soon. And it felt like Gordon and Tonali, it almost felt like if one of them leaves, then Newcastle will want to keep the other one. But is there a case where they might both get sold? If they do, then potentially big money. I think Bayern Munich is an interesting one because Bayern Munich are also sort of in the mix for Rashford. They're definitely looking at a left-sided player. I'd be surprised if they're not considering other options as well. Like Newcastle did, sorry, Bayern Munich did look for a lot of players last season as well. So they were definitely linked to Rashford a year ago. They were linked to potentially one or two other players a year ago as well. So I think Rafael Leao may possibly be on a shortlist as well. So a lot of targets Man United are looking at. Bayern Munich sometimes are linked as that as well. So no, I think Gordon looks like he's going to be. I'd be surprised if Gordon stays there next season, from what I've read recently. But I just wondered whether you thought that they'd sell two players because if Gordon goes to Bayern, are we going to be seeing? Yeah, I say it's not what is strange. He has said he's not going anywhere, but then you have all the rumors. Yeah, with Tonali, there's literally just non-stop stories about that one. And I think when I spoke to Toon Tactics TV, the Newcastle football channel, they were saying from their point of view that Tonali is someone that it's almost like they're going to be right. Well, he's a very good player, but we could replace him with a player that's as effective for less money, and then by nature of doing that, you then buy maybe a couple of players, and by that way you kind of extend your squad. So I think that Tonali one is interesting because he's clearly a good player and he's clearly one that, as a Newcastle fan, you might think, right, you want to build around. Tonali, Bruno Guimaraes. But if they're thinking Tonali can be sold for maybe close to 100, which is a lot of money, then maybe that amount, maybe that money can buy you two or three players. But I don't know, it's difficult. I think last year maybe Newcastle did their deals quite late on. So one of the things I've said recently is Manchester United need to do deals quite quickly. Like we need to try and do some deals quite fast. And I think one thing that the transfer window showed us last season was when Newcastle were going to buy Worcester towards the end of the season, the price got increased quite a lot. And it's the same as like United looking at Unbeliever, the price will go up quite a lot. And I think if we can get a deal done quite quickly, I mean, I don't think we're going to get we're not going to get a cut price deal for Tonali. So Manchester United fans will have to bear in mind that United have said this morning that they're not going to spend incredibly expensive, no, incredible crazy prices. And they do have a price they want to pay and they do have a valuation for each target. The question maybe would be is that they have said in the past as well, and this is a quote from Manchester United as well, they have said that they would be prepared to almost like break the bank, or they would be prepared to spend a huge amount of money on one target. So if they think there's a target that's a key target, so it could have been like Semenyo was considered a key target. It could be that Tonali or Anderson's considered a key target, but we keep getting mixed stories. Like, yeah, one year we get stories saying, Manchester United are going to not spend too much money. Then we get another story that says we can spend whatever it takes to get a player if we think he's a key player. But I think that that was dependent on if you think there's a player available and there's no kind of alternative or there's no player you think that can do a job as effectively, then maybe you have to go for that player. But no, yeah, no, thanks for that, Flossie. Big up to you, Clive, in the chat. So go look at this. What's some of these saying? Gordon to Munich. So he won't be playing that much. They've got Diaz and Nabry. I mean, I think Bayern Munich are looking at just having more and more depth, aren't they? But no, they have but they are linked to Rashford. They were linked to another player as well recently. It looks like it just looks like Bayern Munich are they they always want more players, don't they? Bayern Munich. Lucky Singh saying that yeah, if Tonali's going, I don't think there's any option apart from a Premier League team. So if Tonali wants to go to Serie A, he's just too valuable for Newcastle, unfortunately. So in terms of players going like potentially could go to Serie A, it could be that Agarte goes to Serie A. It could be that Xerxes goes, and they're both linked to Juventus. I mean, maybe they're going to be more effective in that league. I don't know. But potentially Manchester United could be looking at getting, maybe we get the cash from a Juventus sale and then we actually put that money towards Tonali. I get the feeling that from what we've seen, if Manchester United would like to sell Agate, that could be done like quite quickly in the window. So that would for me would be decent. Just a quick question then for people watching that if Agate is valued at approximately 25 million to 30 million, I mean, I have seen valuations as high as 35 million, but if you look at that sort of price, maybe an average of about 30, which I know it seems like quite a lot considering Agate doesn't play, but 30 million pounds gets you almost nothing these days. How much money would you think United need to put with Agate to like feasibly get Tonali? If you're looking, if you're trying to be right, if you don't rate Tonali, then you can't really put a low price out there. If you think Tonali's excellent, Man United has still got a sort of budget. I just wonder what people thought. Welcome, Natasha. You're saying the board will not pay top whack. I don't think that's. Yeah, cheers, man, Flossie. I don't think that Man United will pay crazy money, and I think that maybe the only way we get someone like Tonali is if we can kind of leverage a player exiting the club. I would still say that for me, if I was going to have an internal debate between what's the most likely, is it Agate going to Italy, Manchester United using that money and then putting that towards buying any midfield target we want? I think that's a bit more likely. I mean, if Agate wants to join Newcastle, that's brilliant, but I don't know at this moment in time. I think within Tonali's situation, like Natasha's right, that there was links with Arsenal with Tonali. Whether Tonali wants to go to Arsenal is a bit unknown. Can Arsenal spend that much money on another midfielder? Potentially Arsenal could, but yeah, Arsenal might have issues if some of their experienced players decide to disappear. So Dhexian, you're saying you'd pay 70 million dollars plus Agate. So I guess that if you're looking at that deal, then that would be close to, I suppose, $70 million. How much is that in pounds? Like £50 million, £60 million, that sort of price. I think the Tonali to Arsenal story was definitely kind of agent pushed. I think they were just trying to test the water. I'm not sure whether Arsenal are interested in spending that sort of money, but we'd have to see regarding that one. Clive said, "You think clubs will spend money, but not as much as last summer." I don't think Liverpool can spend as much as last summer. I think Manchester United are one of the few clubs that maybe did. We didn't do it loads last summer. We've got a lot of players that are leaving the club. So, as I said, sort of 20 minutes ago, that Trabzonspor do want to get, they do want to get Anana, make it full time. It's Rasmus is like pretty much agreed as a deal as to exit the club as well. It looks like Agate has a couple of teams interested in him. I have seen other links as well with Galatasaray, but if Agate is wanted by Galatasaray, Juventus, and Newcastle, then I think 30 million is achievable. Like there's three teams there that look at Agate. He's good internationally, so it's not that just because he doesn't work out in the Premier League. You could say Diogo Forlan didn't work out in the Premier League. Anthony didn't work out in the Premier League. Both those players are really good in La Liga after that. And there's other players that maybe like look at Scott McTominay. Like he's been regarded as a much better player since he moved to Serie A. And I think Juventus maybe they're looking at this thinking actually they could get some quite good value. So it's a different league. It's a completely different way of playing. The Premier League is just so rapid, so pacey. I think Agate and Xerxes have just struggled, and maybe they were not the best signings. So I'll go through the comments and see what people are thinking regarding this. But no, if Agate leaves, where does he go? That's my question. Because I think if Agate leaves, I think Serie A's got to be the most obvious destination. I mean, if he goes to Newcastle, like I know that it seems crazy, but it's bizarre how many stories I've seen almost like on a weekly basis for the last month, and actually people I speak to offline as well. There's a lot of people convinced that for some reason Agate might be a Newcastle player. Like the link started a couple of months ago, and it seems strange that they keep going. But Agate to Newcastle is, I think it's if it happens, I will just be some deals happen and you just can't explain it. I would be very surprised if it happened, but I was a bit surprised that Sancho went to Villa. I mean, that's one where I think is probably one of the most surprising things. But Natasha saying Agati will go to Italy, say 99% for sure. If Juventus want him, Juventus are a very good team, one of the historical best teams in Italy as well. So I think it'd be very difficult for Agati to turn down Juventus. What is bizarre though, if Agate plays for Paris Saint-Germain, like the best team in France for a long time, and he plays for Manchester United, historically with the best team in the Premier League era, and he plays for Juventus, historically last sort of 20 years, won the most titles, it would be bizarre, wouldn't it? It would be very strange if Agate has, 'cause you could look at his transfer record and think, wow, what a player. He's played for the top teams in three leagues, but it honestly doesn't make a lot of sense. I'd say, big up to you, Ryan. So this is an update from Fabrizio a couple of minutes ago. Agate expected to leave. Club has revealed two midfielders at least to join the summer transfer window. Yeah, it'd be good if a big up to you, Nems in the chat. It'd be good if Fabrizio could say any update on where he's going. I would really think that it would be great to have some sort of clarification over the Tonali situation. I think what's interesting is that Newcastle fans also see mixed kind of stories as well. So just to go through the kind of angle we're looking at today, there's a couple of stories putting out there, not just me, but one is on the screen saying that Agate could be used as a cash plus player deal. Tonali, the target to head to Old Trafford. I could also say as well that is there any other targets Manchester United are linked to that Agate could be used as a deal, as a also a make weight. And I would say that in terms of Premier League options, I don't know if Agate. Is there any chance he goes to another Premier League team? You've got, we're linked to Belieber. Any chance he goes to Brighton? I think it's unlikely. Any chance he goes to Bournemouth instead for Alex Scott? I'm like, he's not going to go to Wolves, is he? So this links to Newcastle seem bizarre because I don't think it's going to happen, but it seems strange that every sort of few days there is another story about Agate and Newcastle, and the sources are saying that they think Newcastle are interested. I mean, Newcastle fans are probably seeing these headlines and thinking, "What is going on with our club?" But we said the same thing when we signed Agate instead of other players a couple of years ago. And regarding Tonali for sale, then we've had numerous sources over the last week, and actually going back to the January transfer window when it looked like Tonali was almost forcing his way out of the club. I think Tonali is ambitious. He wants to win trophies. It looked like his agent was trying to push some sort of deal towards Arsenal. And just wondering whether is Tonali part of a list of players that are hitting their mid 20s. They've gone to Newcastle. They're in the spotlight. They're now looking for a different move. Like, is Isak and Gordon? Are they the kind of what's happening with Newcastle? Is that the problem they've got? That Isak comes to Newcastle. He's one of the best players in the Premier League. He jumps ship as soon as he can, goes to Liverpool. It's a bit messy the way it ends, and I think Tonali is maybe edging the same way, Gordon the same way as well. But it's not quite as dramatic yet because there's a long way to go in the transfer window. But potentially we could be seeing the same situation. We could be seeing these players falling out with the club as well, trying to get a move to a bigger club. It is unfortunately for Newcastle, they almost have to try and build around these players before they leave. And if Tonali leaves and Gordon leaves, it's actually quite difficult, isn't it? But saying that, I don't think the plan has changed, Boba. I don't think it has changed for United. That I think it's just a matter of what's going to be the order in which they do the deals. So I think that in terms of this, if Man United can get a deal done quite quickly, it feels like there's pressure to get three players from at least myself and other fans that to get three players, three midfield options at Manchester United, I would feel comfortable we got a good window. That so in terms of midfield, we got a good midfield. If we get three more players in to go alongside Mainoo, and they've got to be good quality players at least like I think at least one of them, if not two, have to have played in the Premier League just to kind of hit the ground running next season. I don't mind getting non-Premier League players, but I think you have to actually get some players that have. Say Gordon, Anderson, and Tonali might go to City. Uh, yeah, possibly. I mean, I haven't really thought about City, but no, it is possible. It is possible that happens as well. Natasha, you could be right. Let's say, yeah, exactly, Ryan. We're kind of on that one as well. So that I had this story as well that the price apparently a day ago when Arsenal when Newcastle were interested in Nagate, we said £35 million gets the deal done straight away. I think maybe the valuation of Nagate at 35 might be in line with some sort of like player plus deal where maybe United are looking at say 55 million or 60 million plus Agate to try and get Tonali. Maybe that's the way they're looking at it. Maybe because Newcastle will get a player that would be on a lower contract than Tonali, maybe they think, okay, well, actually, we can still sign at least one player with the money and have Agate. So, yeah, Newcastle need depth as well. Like they have been proven to require that this season, and they struggled a little bit. So I think you're right, Ryan, that what we're going to see is not going to be a big surprise. The biggest surprise will be Agate staying at the club, but I think it's almost like it's been known, isn't it? That I think the club are just not putting out negative stuff about Agate. So we're seeing it somewhat. It feels like this way. Agate leaving feels inevitable. Like no one thinks he's going to stay, but there's no point in Manchester United putting out negative stuff like about it at all. I think it's just move the player on in a sensible manner, and that's what they're doing. So I think it could be a way of starting the window, bring some money in. If Agate goes for 20 million, 25 million, something like that, and saying like Bilal, if you think about it, Anada's got a price tag of about 19, 20 million to avoid PSR, then yeah, 25 million. is effectively that's cheaper than a Championship player at the moment. So if you put Agate, say internationally, he's doing fine. I think Agate in Serie A is a different player. I mean, it should be easier for him. And I don't. If he goes to Newcastle, I'll find. I think Newcastle have made a mistake. Let's be real here. I think Newcastle have made a big mistake if they accept Agate as part payment for any player. And so let's. Um, yeah, I think the price tag for Gordon is too high, but I thought Alanga shouldn't cost 60 million. So, I mean, if he does go, okay, I'm in the opinion where I can see that a lot of money's gone on Gordon already. I didn't think he was worth the money Newcastle paid for him from Everton, and I don't think he's worth big money at the moment. But I don't know. For some reason, like maybe teams rate him or they're looking at potential I don't see, but I don't see Gordon being the sort of player that I would want to break the bank for. I can see Diamonde having loads of potential. I can see the merits of getting somebody like Rogers because he's a good finisher. I just don't. I don't know. I think Gordon does a lot of things quite well, but I don't think he does enough at the moment. But I could be wrong. He could like maybe he's a player that's going to kick on in a couple of years, but I would say the valuation's got to be lower. So so Agate was supposed to replace Casemiro. I think Agate was supposed to play alongside. I suppose actually, what was the plan for Agate? Like, was he going to be replacing Casemiro, or was he going to be playing? Maybe he was, and maybe Agate was actually supposed to be someone that brought mobility to our team, someone that was actually going to be able to cover a lot of distance. But I think in terms of like where he plays, if you look at Casemiro, like defensively, Agate can win the ball back. Like he's got some, he's not bad off the ball. He can win the ball back. But I think as soon as he's in possession, the difference between Agate and our other Premier League midfielders, it's just night and day. So if Newcastle wanted Agate, it's almost like he's just going to be there as a defensive anchor, but he's got to pretty much like pass the ball as soon as he gets it because he's not going to be able to drive it forward. He's not going to be able to make great decisions. Like he's not going to be able to progress the ball. So I think it's limited as well. Casemiro, like if Casemiro at the age he's at, I'd still take him over Agate for the next 5 years. Like he's just a much better football player. It's like Belieber Fernandez buying two, selling Agate. You're saying that would be a good window. If we got Belieber and Fernandez and moved on Agate, unfortunately, no, I think that's obviously a big step in the right direction. But we are replacing Casemiro as well, so I think we need to get three in because Agate and Casemiro are two people to replace. We probably need to replace Ericsson from last season as well, which we haven't replaced. So I think that's three, and Mason Mount's going to play less and less. So three in, two out is actually that's why like two in two like two players leaving and two players coming in is not enough with Champions League. But I take your point, Lucky. These are good transactions. If Blieben and Fernandez come in and Agate. Also, I saw something this morning which was a little update on Collier. It was obviously yeah, it wasn't anything saying this is going to happen, but what it did say was that Toby Collier is likely to be cashed in on this summer. That was kind of an opinion piece, but it looked like Toby Collier is a player that's not going to be featuring next season. Will probably be sold. Honestly, I don't know how much money Toby Collier would bring in, considering he's loaned at Hull at the moment. I'm not sure how that's going. He didn't really get loads of opportunities at Manchester United. I think injuries might have also hampered things as well. I actually at the time when Toby Collier started playing, I thought he was had the basics done like down okay, and I was interested to see what sort of development he'd make. So maybe it's going to be one of those players that unfortunately he needs to go somewhere else, try and rebuild his career, and the injuries have kind of hampered him getting it at much Manchester United. But he's going to be a player that potentially this is what I say I have no idea how much Toby Collier would go for, but it could be another player that gets sold that's an academy player. Gaz says if Agati has a good World Cup, that could generate interest. I mean, by all accounts, he actually plays quite well when he's representing his country. So the fact that, and I'll always say this, the fact that a player can look bad in the Premier League or look bad for Manchester United does not mean that they can't actually look quite good in a different league. Like there's numerous examples of players that suit different leagues. Remember Anthony? He went a whole year without a goal or an assist for Manchester United, and then he goes on loan. He's just banging in goals left, right, and centre, and suddenly he's like one of the more dangerous people in La Liga. I think Jago Forlan was considered a bit disappointing at Manchester United at the time, but then he went on to be La Liga's like it might have been top goal scorer the very next season. So I mean, it doesn't always work out, and the fact it doesn't work out at Manchester United, even like Rasmus has had improvements, I think, since he left. It could be that I get the feeling that United would like to, but if there's an offer of like 35 million, they're taking it straight away. But I think the price tag they put on a 25 million, maybe it's a bit on the low end, considering it's an international football player. And I know people look at it, and if you don't rate our players, I think we have seen other teams in the past sell like young prospects that have barely played at all for like 20 million. So if Agate has a good World Cup, maybe we should be looking at 25 million being a bit too cheap. Like there's no doubt that in a different team, Agate could be effective. But again, there could be a few factors to this. Like he hasn't gotten well this season, being dropped from the team. There could be a mixture of confidence, motivation issues, and just that the football's a little bit too quick. Like the Premier League doesn't give you much time. And I think Agate, if he's got a bit more time, international football might suit him a little bit better. But maybe one to look out for in the World Cup. Maybe we should keep him until the World Cup finishes and hope that they do well. JDC, yeah, we said that at the time. Honestly, a year ago, we said that why are we buying why are we helping Paris Saint-Germain get a good player? But then we also said the same thing this summer about should we be buying Emi Martinez? But I think actually Aston Villa were looking at Lamans, so we could have done the same thing. So maybe we've actually learnt from mistakes, and I think it's difficult to say because a few things happen. But I think Manchester United potentially have learnt a bit from mistakes they've made in the past. And say Cass is the ultimate professional. Do you know what the thing I like about Casemiro is that Casemiro literally has nothing to gain from getting Champions League football this season. He's already got a move to Miami. He's not going to get the pay rise that people get from getting Champions League football, but he's pretty much putting in his best performances at this point in time. That he can't do anything more. Say 33 million for Agate to break even. Okay, so that kind of makes sense a bit because we've got him for 42, I believe. So yeah, maybe it's about that. So maybe we can sneak some add-ons there. But I guess if we take a slight hit on Agate and we can sell Anana for 19, that breaks even. And then Xerxes, I think we can sell for similar money, so that might be considered a profit on the books at least anyway. So yeah, I would say like 30 might be getting the deal done, possibly. I would say Carrick is in a strong position to be named permanent Manchester United head coach. Results on the pitch and the way he has gone about it are likely to see him handed a long-term contract. That's quite interesting. So that's breaking news regarding Michael Carrick. I was always in favour of the middle ground, where I do like the idea that Michael Carrick, if you're going to keep Michael Carrick, I would want to go sort of short term just to see how. I would love to have a season with Michael Carrick with Champions League football. If you're going to keep Michael Carrick, give him 1 year, see how he does. But I don't know what. I'm sure Michael Carrick wouldn't be turning down that offer. Like he might get other offers in the Premier League, but if Manchester United offered him a 1+1 deal or something, 1 year, do well in the Champions League, get Champions League football again, we can then look at it. I think it would be difficult for him to turn down, but I think he's in a strong position, and I think it's probably because there's not loads of options out there as well. It's tricky, isn't it? But if Carrick gets the job, I'll agree with Marps. If Carrick gets the job, we back him, hope he does really well. If a new manager comes in, we hope he does really well as well. And I think most of us probably look at it and say, if if Carrick doesn't do well, or if Nagelsmann comes in and doesn't do well, I hope that the transfer window is not a factor. I hope the transfer window is as good as possible, so it gives Michael Carrick or Nagelsmann the best possible platform to try and achieve what they need to achieve. So again, I think more of this is on. I'm quite relaxed about the head coach situation, but also one last point about that one is if Michael Carrick is head coach, then the coaching structure underneath him is very likely to be different. It was put together very quickly. It has worked quite well, but with a whole sort of summer, I think there will be a bit of a restructuring regarding what coaches he's working with. So I don't think there's going to be, yeah, I don't think it's going to be exactly the same, even if Carrick's in charge. I think things will change somewhat behind the scenes. So that's just kind of my view. I think United will have a lot of time to think about this. And clearly, if Nagelsmann comes in, we get completely new coaches anyway. So if Michael Carrick stays, I think we look at the coaching behind and see what options we can do for the future. But shall I put a so where maybe a question is going to be as well. Uh, where's Tonali going to play next season? But I've seen non-stop rumours that he's going to be going to a team like, say, Manchester United has been linked. Arsenal has been a little bit linked. There's definitely going to be conversations about. I don't think any Italian team can afford him, so that rules out Italy. It's almost like when you look at some of the football players now, the Premier League has so much money that you've almost got to look at the Premier League as being like one option for a player. And then apart from that, like Real Madrid are looking at Rodri, Real Madrid are looking at Stiller, Barcelona certainly can't afford Tonali. No Italian team can. And Bayern Munich, I don't think they're in the mix. But also, I mean, they did try and get Wirtz, but they might be looking for more attacking-minded players, it seems, at Bayern Munich. So I think Tonali, that if Newcastle want to sell him, I don't know who the competition would be. So if Manchester United want to buy Tonali, do they have like a free reign? Like, is it a free pass to try and get Tonali? Is there any other club out there? Like, I know Arsenal's the only one that's been talked about, but is there actually any club out there that would be, looking to try and get Tonali at that sort of price? I'm not sure there would be. So if you're going to give Carrick a contract, you give him 1 year, so you can't deny the contract. I agree. If you go 1 year to assess performance, because it's a different having an interim manager and being full-time manager with the burden of Champions League football, cup football. Don't forget, when Michael Carrick took over, we were knocked out of the League Cup, knocked out the FA Cup. We weren't even in Europe, so just had the Premier League to focus on, and the remit was get European football, get Champions League football. I don't think Michael Carrick could have done anything more than that. Like Michael Carrick couldn't have achieved any more in my mind. I know people will question performance, etc., but did anybody think Michael Carrick could bridge the gap to City or Arsenal? Like, of course not. Did anybody think he would seriously be about 10 points ahead of Chelsea? I don't think so. So I don't think so. So in terms of like what can Michael Carrick do? He could literally do nothing more. So on that basis, I think it would be fair to go right. Here's a year. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But the main thing would be that the transfers you get in would be good. So the same way when Ruben Amorim took over from Eric Ten Hag, the transfers a bit have improved. If Carrick has a year, it doesn't work out, the next head coach coming in will hopefully have some good midfield players. We'll have a better squad overall. The main thing for me is not who's going to be manager for the next 1 or 2 years. It's about is the squad going to get better every single season? So I think if Manchester United focused on making the squad better every single season, managers are going to have a much better chance of working out, like whoever they are. If you look at City, City went through about 5 managers before they got Pep, didn't they? They won the league about 3 times and sacked the managers, but they kept improving the squad year on year. And if you do that, it doesn't matter. It does matter to some extent, but there's someone like Slot could walk into Liverpool and win the league because they had the squad there already set up. So if Manchester United keep building on the squad, that's going to be the main thing. So let's go through a few of the comments. Welcome, Chris, to the chat as well. I guess you'll be happy with the first sort of 5 to 10 minutes of this stream, Chris. Contract announced, Mainoo about to sign another 5 years. One of the best young players in the Premier League at the moment. And say, well, if you're looking at this, like if you're saying, I know you don't rate Tonali, but if we're talking about Agate, would I take John Stones? I would. I'll just say this: 100% no for me. Um, One of the reasons is I know a few Manchester City content creators. Like I said, I don't know any Man City fans in real life, but I know a couple of content creators, and I've just seen them moaning like for years about John Stones being injured. So another injured centre back would feel like if we got another injured centre back, I just think what is going on. So no, I think sometimes I go by opposition fans' views. They're happy for John Stones to leave the club. I think we should look at that as well. Big up to you, Mr. B. So I think you'll beat Liverpool. I mean, if we beat Liverpool, then it's going to be. I challenge people to come in with a really credible argument of why Carrick shouldn't be getting an opportunity. If we beat Liverpool and play anywhere near how we played in the first half last night, again, like Brentford are a good team. Brentford beat Liverpool. I think Brentford are relentless as well. So you don't beat Brentford over 45 minutes. You have to play well for 90 minutes to stop Brentford. And we did that. And if we beat Liverpool, it's not a done deal, is it? But it'd be pretty difficult to make a case and say, look, we're not going to be giving Michael Carrick the job because yeah, I know you might have an argument. You might have an argument, but I would just say to you that if you're looking at what's happened as well, yeah, yeah, Cohen, there's definitely a lot of that sort of thing going on, unfortunately. So so your point is Newcastle are willing to let Tonali go, who everyone thinks is great, but they don't. So when I spoke to Newcastle fans, their viewpoint was again, this is probably one where it makes you then question whether Tonali should be where it should be rated in terms of like signing. So to go back to Tonali, if as a from Manchester United fan perspective, where would you rate Tonali compared with players we're looking at? So everybody's going to have a different view. Everyone's going to have a favourite transfer target. But from what I've spoken to Newcastle fans about, maybe over the last few weeks, when I've spoken to a couple of Newcastle content creators I know, the feedback I got from Tonali was if Tonali leaves, they're going to be disappointed a little bit because they do like the player, but they do think that they can buy adequate replacements and get them for cheaper than they sell Tonali. So, with that argument in mind, I think Tonali's a good player, but I think Manchester United can definitely buy players that are cheaper and might be of similar success. Like if you put Tonali in Manchester United midfield, he's obviously better than Ugarte. He's obviously going to be bring some experience, and that's going to be useful. He's obviously in the right environment, a good player. And I think if we got a player that also, there's probably players we could buy for 50 to 60 that may end up being £30 million cheaper than um, Tonali. I'm just using like rough figures, but we could buy someone that's maybe 40, 50% cheaper than Tonali and we probably wouldn't notice a massive difference. And if we're looking at Tonali at the moment, Tonali's what, 25, Z 25, 26. If we're buying a player that's going to be 21, 22, that you think, okay, maybe they're not quite Tonali yet, but give them 3 more years of development, we could be looking at saving a lot of money. So we could be saving 40 to 50 million pounds on those players. So I think Tonali's good. I'm wondering whether Newcastle's valuations are a little bit too high, a bit like Brighton. If you look at Newcastle's transactions, they sold Isak for I think too much money. They bought Elanga for, in my opinion, too much money. They bought Wissa, I think, for too much money. So I think Newcastle have a inflated view of the transfer market. I think it's not shared by Manchester United exactly either. So as a Casemiro replacement, I think too many is the only Casemiro replacement I've actually seen that for me ticks. If I was going to make a checklist of things that Casemiro has brought to Manchester United, I think too many is the closest one, but too many doesn't have the attacking output. Too many has a bit more versatility, could play as a centre back. So I think you're looking at like a more defensive player in too many than Casemiro. Like Casemiro, no doubt, is good defensively, but he's got lots of attributes that went under the radar until this season, particularly amount of goals he's scoring, like really good for his position. But I don't think there is a Casemiro replacement out there. But I think if you're looking at maybe too many, we could see last night that if Mainoo is actually getting further forward, Mainoo can develop into a player that maybe people weren't expecting either. So I think a lot of people are unsure about where Mainoo plays. I think Mainoo can play more defensively. Mainoo can play more attacking. I think Mainoo has got the ability to do a few things. And I think it depends. If Tchouaméni is playing alongside Mainoo, Mainoo can do one role. If Tonali is alongside Mainoo, it might be a slightly different role. If we had Anderson, maybe we see a slightly different role again. I think it's about different combinations. So I think we need to look at. what we want from the team. Do we want some options as well? Gaz says we need to stop thinking in terms of sixes and eights, and I would say that what I would look at is instead of thinking in sixes and eights, do you think what does Manchester United need in its entire squad? So forget about one individual player. Do you think you'd look at it? Like this is what I would look at: is would it be nice for Manchester United, Michael Carrick, Nagelsmann, whoever it is, to look at our squad and think, okay, we've got like four different personalities, four different players here. We've got too many who's very good at this. We've got Anderson, or we've got Baliba, or we've got maybe Alex Scott, or we've got Gomez, or we've got potentially, like, obviously, we've got Mainoo, and we have four different players, and think actually, in this game, we're going to be on the front foot, we're going to be attacking, we're expecting to dominate possession. Maybe let's go for a player alongside Mainoo. It's going to be a bit more attacking. If we're going to be playing a very difficult game when we're more defensive, like too many might be a good option. I think it's just about having different players in your squad and then different options on your bench that are going to be effective. Because I think we watched last night, and if we're winning the game, you don't really want to bring on Agate because just to keep the momentum. If you're losing the game, you can't really bring on Agate to change it in your favour, can you? So it's really difficult to like see any sort of merit to having players like Agate. Whereas Angela Stiller, maybe Tonali or too many, you can see definitely merits for having these sort of players as well. And Hexion saying you'd rather have too many than Tonali. Uh, yeah, I would say overall, package wise, deal, etc. Tonali might cost slightly more transfer wise. I think too many is probably going to be slightly more expensive overall. And that's mainly because too many's contract is going to be, we're going to be looking at, if we get Casemiro's replacement as too many, we're going to be looking at a Casemiro contract. That's that can be that sort of level. Too many's already on about 200 base plus 50 Champions League, etc. So I think we'd be looking at the most expensive contract we've got at the club if we took on too many. I don't think we get a lot. I don't think we get a cheap deal for Tonali. If Anderson's going to be 200k, I think Tonali might be similar, slightly more. If you look at Spurs and they put Gallagher on 200k a week, and that's more than Mainoo, that's more than I believe Mbeumo and Cunha. Yeah, I'm not sure how much Sesko's getting, but it's probably more than the three players we signed last season. Crazy, isn't it? That's the Spurs have got some bad contracts at the club. I think maybe like Angela Stiller, Alex Scott, Baliba would be cheaper in terms of like salary as well. So Scott could be a cheap signing, could be a bargain. Alex Scott is one that potentially could be quite a good deal, couldn't he? He could end up being one of the better deals, but again, it depends on the price. I think João Gomez potentially and Matheus Fernandes. If West Ham got relegated, we could see a couple of bargains in the transfer window. But if West Ham stay up, which I think is a very good chance now, I think the bargains might be to go from Wolves this summer. So it's very difficult as well. As Gaz saying, Maine's been actually more of a six, Casemiro more of an eight since January anyway. I remember having this conversation. I don't think we know, obviously, you won't know this, Gaz, but I remember having a conversation about 2 years ago. And it might have been when we were looking at Manchester United. I was talking offline with a few other people about this. And you're looking at the amount of assists, the amount of chance creation, or the amount of chances actually that you see Casemiro on the end of. And yeah, I think he's been playing more attacking than certainly more than he was at Real Madrid for a few years. It's probably this season where, honestly, what you're looking at is everything's clicking into gear, isn't it, for Casemiro? The team's set up nicely. Bruno Fernandes has got his flow back. He's putting in lots of dangerous crosses. The understanding is there. The link-up play is there. And Casemiro is one of the most, I don't know, lethal finishes in the air I've seen for years. Like the amount of times Casemiro gets a header and it results in a goal is really astonishing. Like, I don't know what his strike rate is, but it feels like it's going to be one of the best in the league regarding that one. I think Mainoo is actually, I think Mainoo went under the radar because a lot of fans look at goals and assists and they don't notice what Mainoo does. They notice when Mainoo's not in the team because we get run through like we did against Leeds. But when Mainoo's actually playing, I don't think people notice what he's doing. So I think Mainoo is also, when you saw him attack yesterday, if you want to know what Mainoo's good at, then that chance he created for Amajalo, and the way he played against Manchester City, that tells you all you need to know. It's technically superb, amazing feat, just a lot of positives. Welcome, Randy. Good to see you in the chat. Said, first time I saw Belieber, he was a centre back, and I thought this guy can be a good CDM. And again, he's someone as well that also maybe we're going to be seeing, yeah, different evolution of the player as well. With Mainoo, I mean, is Mainoo's best position going to be attacking? Is it going to be sitting deep? Is Mainoo just one of these players like Roy Keane that throughout his career he might vary between playing as a more attacking player, more defensive player? I think Roy Keane was more of a when Roy Keane used to break forward in his first part of his career, he was more of like a finisher, a bit like Scott McTominay was doing a little bit for Man United, but he was more someone that was going to finish chances rather than create chances. And I think with Scholes as well, he's more of a finisher. I think with Mainoo, he might be more of a creator when he's going forward. But there's no doubt that he can evolve and become a different player. I think it's just good to have him in the team. That I think he's got a good work ethic. He's working on this one. I'm saying he's got the most ball recoveries in the team since Carrick took over. Also won more duels and tackles than Casemiro. I mean, Casemiro's on like the 95th percentile. So if you're looking at that, then he's got to be right up there, isn't he? If you check the sort of stats. So when United won the treble in '99, it probably was, yeah. I think it's only like the last 5 years, isn't it, that you've had five substitutions, but three subs were allowed. So nowadays, five subs can be used since COVID. Yeah, it's about 5 years. And I think it's more of a squad now. But I think it's having your first 11 gives you a platform. But I think almost what you need now is it's almost like you need three or four, like maybe three players to come on regularly, come on just to make sure you keep the intensity or just to keep if the game's going really well. Sometimes it's like you want similar players to come on and do the same sort of thing. But it's good to have a variety of options. I think the starting 11 is something to fix first, but it's almost like you do need like 16 players in some games. I mean, Manchester United we used to regularly bring on like two strikers, like say Champions League finals, the example with two strikers coming on. But we used to always look at bringing attacking players on. When you got three subs, we never made defensive substitutions as far as I can see, unless there was an injury. It was always about, right, what attacking players have you got ready to change the game? And that's why I think with United that yeah, if we're looking at the bench, I tend to look at attacking players first and go, right, who have we got to change the game? And last night we had Dorgu back from injury, and we had Lacey who played in the under 21s, I think a couple of days earlier. So we weren't going to do much, and our first team had to get it done last night. Really, yeah, no, I agree. Welcome, Elizabeth. Good to see you in the chat. So my question was going to be, if Tonali's actually genuinely costs, I don't know, like 90, 100 million pounds, and Manchester United are considering maybe we are looking at potentially Ugarte being interested. Like there's interest in him from a couple of teams. I did say earlier that Juventus seems to be the stronger interest, and I think that's more likely because Serie A for me feels like a more natural destination. My question is going to be though: do you look at Tonali and think, okay, Newcastle are looking at Tonali to cash in, and do you think United can get a better deal for Tonali? Because I don't think any team in Serie A, I don't think any other team's actually looking seriously at Tonali at the moment. Like, I know there was like rumours about Arsenal, but I don't think there's any team looking at buying Tonali. Do you think United should just walk away or just look elsewhere? Or do you think there's actually any sort of chance of getting a deal where you think actually that's quite good value? So is there a deal to be done here? Or is it just too expensive? I don't think United are going to spend 100. I mean, I'd be very surprised if we spent over 90 on one player. I think we're looking at maybe 70, 75 as like a top end. That's my guess. And maybe even with like a Garte as being potentially a make weight, I think we'd be looking at maybe only adding like six, maybe like 50 to 60 plus that, maybe add-ons possibly. The Gaz says, yeah, because my opinion is going to be that I think Tonali's good. I know some people will say they don't think he's particularly great, but I think Tonali's a good player. I just I don't think there's any value in there. I think it's too expensive. I think Newcastle just want to cash in and then go somewhere else. I just think it's a difficult one to get done. I don't think it makes sense in terms of our long-term plan. Like if we're going to go for a signing that's going to be a premium price, I'm I'm actually leaning towards too many because I think too many's got more experience. I think he might fit our team a little bit better than Tonali, proven winner. Um, more versatile, potentially also could be centre back. So I do like that as an option. Gaz says Tonali is way too much. It's a pass from Danny as well. Foxy says Tonali will return to Serie A alone with an obligation. Do you think that Serie A teams can afford him though? Because if they want to cash in, the problem is what I've been reading about Newcastle is the reason why Newcastle are looking to sell Tonali is because they want to get some money in to transform their team. So if they're looking at a loan with an obligation, I don't know how close they can get, but I don't think they can get anywhere near the valuation. That if we're looking at Manchester United trying to sell, who do we try and sell to Serie A? We tried to get rid of Sancho. We tried to get rid of. I think even like Rasmus is like a stretch, and Rasmus is like really wanted by Napoli. So I think it'd be very surprising if he could do that deal. But Serie A just feels expensive. I think Tonali might like a Serie A move, but I don't think he's under contract for about 5 years, isn't he? So I think it's or maybe 4 years, but I think it's really, really difficult as well. I'll say too many. Yeah, this is kind of what I was thinking. What are your names for two quick deals? I saw this as well. I'd say Tonali or too many. Okay, we could do. That does mean that I'll have to put Chewy in there because I can't I can't think how it's spelled. Let me do a quick poll and we'll do a quick snapshot of people watching. Best option. Okay, so if you could like keep writing too many in the chat so I can see it when I'm doing the poll because I won't get the spelling right, I'm sure. So I'll put this in then. Say start a poll. So best option. It's going to be tough, isn't it? So best option. And welcome, Omar. And neither on the poll. You want neither on the poll? Okay, so we've got Tonali. You can spell that one, no problem. So have I got that right? I think it's close, but you'll know what it is. So I'll put one more option. Neither is okay, neither is a bit negative, but we can put neither in there if you want to have neither. So best option. Are we classing this as CDM then? I guess probably. So best option. Yeah, I think I got it right actually. I must have wrote it enough times to get it right. So thanks, Rizabeth. Thanks, Gaz. So I remember like trying to remember how to spell Cavashalia, and eventually got that one right. Masrari. There's a lot of names with a lot of a lot of vowels in them. Too many actually has every single vowel. So best option for United. I won't bother putting price. They're going to be roughly similar overall when you compare salary and transfer fee. So best option for United. Too many Tonali. Or if you think they're both really bad options, you can vote neither. But either way, we want to see who gets the most votes out of Tonali and too many. So if preferable, vote for one of those players. That would be ideal, just to see what people think. I mean, the only difference is that Tonali's played for Newcastle and so he's got Premier League experience. But you could also, I would argue that too many's played for potentially even Man United fans have to admit probably the biggest club in the world. So and if you can lock down a place at Real Madrid with the fan base they've got and the demands they put on, so it's one to vote for. So, what's the hardest name in football? Tchouameni's up there. Kvaratskhelia was definitely up there. I think there's some Greek players that potentially have every letter in the alphabet. To be honest. Okay, so I'll go through the comments because it's good to see what's happening. If we could get 50 live likes, that would be excellent as well. And people that are subscribing, please get involved as well. If you're new as well. What's the second? I must have missed something. Uh, so you don't want Tonali. You're not playing Ultimate Team. I saw something. The worst clip I've seen is I don't want to mention the content creators, but the worst clip I've seen is loads of people talking about Mainoo under a certain manager, saying that he can't cut it at Manchester United because he can't run. It's so funny. It's the worst take I think I've ever heard. Okay, so you don't want Tonali. That's Chris. I'm aware. Debasis, big up to you in the chat, says miles above Tonali. It says, "Why don't you want the best CDM in Europe?" Says Omar. So yeah, football's about opinions, isn't it? Say Madrid are the second biggest club. They're definitely in the top two, aren't they? They're definitely in the top two. Maybe they've been a bit luckier in the Champions League, but I'll say from a Man United fan, at the moment, we're not even entering the same competitions as Real Madrid, so it's a stretch, isn't it? So say, but I think that we're the biggest club in England, but I think we'd have to say that on the world stage at the moment, given the fact we're not in a title race for about a decade, I think we'd have to say Real Madrid are probably considered a bit bigger. It's tough. I have to say that because I try not to be biased. Um, no, Bilal, I don't know. So the only worry about too many is that hamstring injury, recurring foot injury, and so yeah, Real Madrid don't usually do that as well. I think Real Madrid have got an offer of a contract on the table for too many, which I suspect is to maybe protect his transfer value as much as anything else. So I don't think they want him to leave, as far as I can see. He did play like over 40 games last season, over 50. So a lot of games he's played with too many. A lot of football, I guess, as well. But so you could see that as positive or negative. He's played a lot of matches. And say, don't do that to Casemiro. Too many replaced him at Madrid. Don't let him have. Well, Casemiro is he's choosing to leave, isn't he? So Casemiro is choosing to leave. So I don't know what to say. That Casemiro can stay if he wants. So he could stay if he wants to. So you're sticking to us being the fourth biggest club. I don't know. I'm thinking historically here. I'm thinking like, who's won more Premier League titles than Man United recently? Who's got the I don't know more famous teams in the past? Then I think Manchester United and Liverpool are levels above any other Premier League team. And I think on a world stage, probably Manchester United, Liverpool. I don't know who's the biggest in Italy. It's got to be Juventus or AC Milan. I think Inter are probably up there to some extent, but I think it might be Juventus maybe for domestic stuff. But no, in Champions League terms as well, Real Madrid, AC Milan are definitely up there. No, I think United are definitely financially been in like the top two for a long time with Real Madrid. And if we get consistent in the Champions League, I think we can be back up there. So, so did May? I don't know to be honest. Mainoo looked very composed from his first couple of games with Man United as well. I was saying too many's playing a lot at centre back. So in terms of reasons why too many might want to be out, this is one thing I did see as well, Gaz. So I'm glad you mentioned that because it kind of triggered something I remember seeing. Is that too many might be there might be reasons why certain players want to leave Real Madrid. Now there's a question over some of the things which are obviously beyond football to do with like like racism and that sort of reason. But the one thing I've read about regarding more specific to Tchouaméni is I think Tchouaméni's been like frustrated at playing at centre back and not playing in his natural position. So I'm pretty sure Manchester United do not see Tchouaméni as a centre back, and you would be looking at seeing Tchouaméni as anchoring our midfield, potentially being levels up from what we've seen from Ugarte, and actually a really good role model, potentially also a very good mentor for Mainoo, a lot of experience. If we're looking at Alex Scott, Fernandez, um, Gomez, Stiller, Mainoo will be playing alongside them. I think we can list like four players that could play alongside too many, and they'll benefit so much from too many's experience. I think he's the best option in my view. So I do realize I've got a poll running, and I'm pretty much doing a campaign for too many. So if people want to put some, if people want to put a few positives about Tonali, please put them out there as well. So uh, as far as journalists say, like Omar, this is not bias. This is just reading what I've read in the media that apparently Real Madrid wants to keep him. Like, he wants to keep, they want to keep Tonali at the team. They're offering him a new contract. I don't have any stats on me. I don't know what stats you want regarding Tonali. If anyone's got any sort of comparison of what they want to see from Tonali, I don't have any sort of stats prepared. So it's going to take a while to find different websites to get those up. But I can look into that. If I see any sort of comparison between Tonali and Tchouaméni, I'll look into it. But they probably seem to be the two players people are comparing the most. But I think also they're the two players that are mentioned that do have a higher level of experience than other people. So everybody else is going to be relatively young. I think that the way things are going there, I think Anderson's going to have a reasonable amount of experience as well. Yeah, I couldn't say anything when the Newcastle fan was here, Stephanie, but when no worry, Omar, no worry. I was just saying, I'll just try and put out the facts. So I was just trying to respond just sort of generally. So anything I say on screen, just know that it's going to be things I've read. And if I say it's an opinion, you'll be able to hopefully tell it's an opinion. Um, but Stephanie, yeah, when I spoke to the Newcastle content creators, I was asking them about Tonali, and they said pretty much, no, if Tonali goes, it's fine. We will get a replacement. We'll just get a replacement that's cheaper. We're happy with that sort of deal. And then one thing they did say at the same time was, if Bruno Guimaraes left, they would be devastated. So for Newcastle fans, they see Bruno Guimaraes as pretty much the Roy Keane we had in the 90s. So they see Bruno Guimaraes as the reason why Newcastle win games, the driving force, and they see Bruno Guimaraes as levels above Tonali. So I think you're kind of going down the right route with that, Stephanie. Newcastle content creators and fans I know, they rate Bruno Guimaraes way above him. Yeah, you're right, Foxy. They consider him the heartbeat of the club. Like everything, he's the person that is Mr. Newcastle. He's not going to go anywhere. So that's what they're looking at as well. I say also, yeah, his age is like with Bruno Guimaraes. He's 29, but I think he's worth more to Newcastle than any other, no, than any other sort of deal. That's so for Newcastle. Bruno Guimaraes is essential to their team, but Bruno Guimaraes wouldn't be the right player for Manchester United to look at building around, like because of his age. Whereas for Newcastle, he represents some stability, and they're looking at getting other pieces in around him. As far as I know, he's very happy with Newcastle, and there's no issues there at all. So Bruno Guimaraes potentially he's going to play there for the rest of his career. And yeah, no, with this one, this was the story that if you look at the where was it? There was a story put out by there's probably about two different sources. This the one on the screen is just one I could screenshot to show you guys, but the other one was more a few articles, and they said that the one I read that had the same sort of story was Manchester United have told Newcastle if you want Ugarte, you can have him for 35 because apparently there's interest. But it seems that Ugarte could be used in a cash plus player deal, so it would be significant cash plus Ugarte. So the only reason it works for Newcastle is if they can use Ugarte in some way that benefits their team, which is up to them. Hopefully, we get. I think we get cash from Ugarte from somewhere else, and then we look at this one. I'll say after too many. So lucky. We'll have to see. Like we got say, you think if we get too many, then we get. And how much do you reckon Unai costs as a shout? Because I think Unai his stats at Everton don't really represent what we see him capable of. Like Everton have got David Moyes in charge. He's very defensive. It's a bit like having Amrin in charge. You don't see what Bruno Fernandes can do if you play Bruno Fernandes as a deep lying holding midfielder. And I think with David Moyes, you don't really see what Unai can do at that club either. So yeah, it could be interesting. But the question is going to be, how much would Unai cost? Because Pavel really likes Diamonde. They have scouted Rafael Leao, which I think we should be looking away from. So there's a few options out there. But Everton tend to have this. Everton tend to put very high prices on the players, and I think if you're looking at too many as an early deal, I think that deal is going to drag and drag and drag, and then I still think there's a high probability that too many stays at Real Madrid. So I think that's going to be one that if that does happen, it feels like it would be something later on in the window. But I don't think we're going to be seeing too many move clubs quite quickly. I think if anything, we might have to see like Rodri leaving Manchester City first. If Rodri actually gets bought by Real Madrid, and then we see Manchester City go for Anderson, and then we start that's when too many moves clubs, and I don't think it's going to happen incredibly quickly. But actually, Solly in the chat said if to be honest, you're saying you think Bruno Guimaraes and Tchouaméni is closer in terms of function. So Tonali is more progressive with the ball. Tchouaméni is definitely more defensive screen, and maybe like Tchouaméni plus Belieber could be a good combination actually. And I think that's why I think Tchouaméni fits a lot of what we're looking at. Like if we're looking at say Anderson, I think Anderson actually screens the back four very well as well. Like live viewers fans have told me that as well. Chris is saying if we'd swap Agate for Tonali, obviously plus a bit of cash, then yeah, I think to be honest with this one, when we look at if Newcastle are genuinely interested, and I keep saying that because we don't know for sure if Newcastle just that or if Tonali's interested. I think we should be looking at this as a deal that potentially we could do. Like it would make sense. Like Tonali's not my top target, but I do think if there was a deal to get Tonali where it's not crazy money, I think it could be good. I think too many might be my favourite option of those, and I think maybe we're looking at. I think some people are looking at what does Belieber do in Brighton, what does Tonali do in Newcastle, and I think sometimes you have to look at maybe it might be different in Manchester United. What does Unai do at Everton, where they might be playing a low block for a lot of games? He doesn't do that much, but yeah, I think that's why I've been quite impressed by anybody that plays for Newcastle. So anyone that plays for West Ham this season, because West Ham do play a low block a lot of the time. They are difficult, but then you do see like Bowen always like creating problems, always looking dangerous. And actually, sometimes West Ham do what we used to do, where and what we used to do against Man City and Arsenal. We defend strong, and then when West Ham hit, they have got players to hurt you as well. So West Ham have got some good players that maybe fit Manchester United at the moment. So I think there's definitely if West Ham go down, I would say if I was a West Ham fan, I'd be a bit worried because you've got a lot of players there that I think will instantly get bought, and I think your team will be completely pillaged by teams like Man United, probably maybe Paris Saint-Germain, other Premier League teams as well. Welcome, Jim. No worries, Jim. No worries. So yeah, how much money do we have to add though, Jim? Like how much money what would be your top end if you go to Newcastle with your big suitcase of cash and a Garte in the passenger seat, how much money do you have to be giving to Newcastle to think actually this is okay? You can take Tonali with you. It's going to be difficult. Let's say mainly showing levels. We've got a future potential world class player coming up from our academy. That would be positive, really good. Just to answer this question, Omar, I think so. In terms of complement and Mainoo, I think you have to assume that for most matches next season, Mainoo is going to feature a significant amount. So I think you need to look at both, really. I think over the course of the season, I think you need to look at look at players that work with Mainoo, and I think too many works with Mainoo very well. I think Mainoo's obviously got a good future at the club. But I do also take the standpoint that this is a long season, and Mainoo doesn't want. I don't want to see Mainoo playing every single match. He's 21. I don't want to see him starting every single match because he'll get burnt out, and we saw that a couple of years ago. So if you look at Mainoo as being like alongside say Tchouaméni or Anderson, I think also United need to be getting another player that can play as well. So if Mainoo doesn't start a game, but we got too many plus Belieber, I think we still got some good players in there. And if we get say we got Angela Stiller plus too many, then I'd be happy with that as well. Behind Bruno, I think we've got there's lots of options there. If Chris is still in the chat, Willie Zabeta's got some good stats here. So pass completion, too many 90. I would say for context, just for context, too many does play as a centre back as well. So it probably will be slightly higher. But to be honest, those stats for me are pretty comparable 87 to 93 in a potentially easier league in a defensive position, I think is pretty comparable. But tackles, like too many 34 to 13 wins that one. I think interceptions, kind of similar as well. I think aerial duel is interesting because I think that's significantly better than Tonali. Like say 57%, 68%. Also, there have been people that pointed out that Tonali, that too many does step it up against English teams in Europe as well, which is a factor. So I think in terms of this one, like too many for me is probably he probably's got most of the attributes that maybe Casemiro is now leaving when he takes with him. So I think that the aerial duel win rate is important, but again, he's a good centre back as well. I think it would make us more physical as well. He is strong, so no, I think it's good, isn't it? But again, I still don't trust Real Madrid, etc. Um, would I prefer swapping Agate plus 60 for Anderson than Agate plus 40 for Tonali? I would say, yeah, I probably would actually. I probably would because I think Anderson is about what two, a couple of years younger than Tonali. I'd value him a bit higher. I think he's got a higher ceiling potentially. We get him for an extra couple of years. At the moment, I think he fits a lot of what we're trying to do as well. That is playing well, so I'll probably value him higher than Tonali. I think Tonali's expensive, and I think we can get other players that can do that. It is tricky, isn't it? I'd say no. 20 million is like quite a bit, but Debas is saying you're not sure which clubs, apart from Turkish clubs, want Agate. It seems that Juventus, like Debas, Juventus is the one that is apparently, according to, I think this might be Italian sources. Apparently, Agate, the team leading the race is Juventus. Juventus also want Xerxes, and if you remember, Manchester United actually turned down an offer from Juventus, not this January, but January in 2025. We turned down an offer for Xerxes at that point. I don't know why we turned down an offer for Xerxes. I suppose it was quite early on in Xerxes' career, and there was an offer on the table from Juventus, and we said no. I think this year, though, the offer's still going to be there. If Juventus still want him, I think Xerxes will go. And I think Xerxes got potentially more value than Agate. So there's clubs there. Agate's got a few options. It's not as bad as people think. We're not talking about £50 million, are we? We're talking about 20 million, so 25 to 30 million. So there's definitely going to be options there. If there was any truth in like a swap deal for Yildiz with Xerxes going the other way, I would be I would be surprised. Surprised. I think Yildiz is going to be one of these players that Juventus tie down to a long-term contract. So Yildiz is like Musiala. I think that you got a player there that Juventus have no intention of letting go. So you get no discount for Yildiz. They're going to just put a 100 million plus price on Yildiz. So unless Yildiz refuses to sign a contract, and I literally have no idea what his what his contract is at the moment. If he has no intention of signing a deal, then Barcelona, so then Juventus would probably look for something. But I don't think anything else happens either. It is possible. I think when you look at Juventus, Juventus are like the Italian equivalent of Manchester United. They're probably the biggest team in domestic Italian football historically and recently, and they are linked to everybody as well. So there's lots of stories about Juventus with players, Juventus moving out players, and they got some good players there. So I don't know if it's Juventus linking themselves to everybody or just journalists. And it's like Manchester United being linked to everybody as well. I think it's just one of those things that Juventus are a big team. So looking at the poll, too many's got four. It looks like he's leading at the moment. If anyone wants to vote, please get involved in the vote now. I think too many was going to win, but I'll be interested. I can't see the other votes, so I don't know whether people are not sure or whether we see Tonali with a decent amount of votes. But it looks like people, considering we're talking about Tonali a lot this stream, it looks like people are not so keen on Tonali. Is there people that are voting for Tonali? Just give me some positives you think that Tonali would be a good player because it's Manchester United. We have no idea. We could end up with Tonali. We could end up with like any one of like probably 10 midfield players. So Chimeni is a your first choice. Not buying a centre back. Can play both. It's like another box tick, doesn't it, Chris? Like he's got versatility also on his side. That if Tonali plays, say, if Chouameni plays 95% of his games in CDM position, but once or twice, like just imagine we're playing against Chelsea, we have we only have Aiden Heaven available as centre back, but Chouameni comes in, absolutely fine, absolutely fine. And if you've got other situations where Dorgu, like Luke Shaw's out, Dorgu can come in at left back. We've got options there as well. I think Champions League proven is definitely like a level up, isn't it? We haven't actually ever used that term, but maybe sometimes it's just quality proven. Like you watch too many play at the highest level for years, and to be all like to be also looking at Newcastle, has Tonali stood out this season? Like we look at Anderson and performances he put in for Forest. Like has Tonali stood out? Like I think a lot of Newcastle's problems are if Bruno Guimaraes gets injured, then they're not the same team. So I think Bruno Guimaraes for me is a more desirable signing, but he's too old for us really. Solid, yeah, solid. Same, yeah. Put some positives in if you want to like put a case forward for Tonali, please put some comments in just for balance as well, because my mind is kind of like saying to me that I think Tchouaméni is a better option for Man United next season. But if we got Tonali, I'd still try and be positive about it. I think it's still a big improvement on other players we got. And so yeah, do you think do you count that for Tonali as well? Would you say Tonali's experience counts as well? Because I think you say Tonali's got international experience, although given what's happened with Italy recently, it's probably not as much international experience as Italian fans would like. Premier League experience definitely there for Tonali. Champions League experience. Newcastle actually did okay this season in the Champions League, considering their league form. So I think either way, you get benefit. I think you get more benefit from Tonali, so from Tchouaméni, because Tchouaméni is pretty much like the next Casemiro in terms of like the player that's been there, done it at Real Madrid for years. So in that, yeah, there's a reason why Italy aren't in the World Cup. I'm not going to blame I'm not going to blame Tonali, but that's a good point. So looking at Steph's comments, he said that there's a chance that Agate loses his international place, which that would be worst case scenario for Man United trying to cash in as well. And so Mainoo's form partnership for England. Can you imagine the conversation if for whatever reason? I mean, there's a lot of football to be played in the World Cup, but what if Mainoo gets into the squad and outperforms Elliot Anderson? Then that's going to make an interesting conversation for the rest of the transfer window. So I think there's definitely there's a lot to play for in the Champions League. Sorry, in the World Cup. On what basis am I saying Anderson's performance is better for Forest than tonight for Newcastle? I know a few match going fans that watched a few games and they were so impressed by things that you don't see when you're watching on TV. So I'm taking some opinions from match day fans as well. I think overall, like Forest, Newcastle, you'd imagine with the players around him, I think Elliot Anderson's been playing consistently better. I think Tonali's. I'm not saying anything negative about Tonali, but match going fans, the feedback on Anderson is like he's been a better performer this season. And I think yeah, sometimes there's things you can see that you can't really, yeah, you can't really see that. Yeah, we're pushing for three midfielders anyway, so there's room for like a few, isn't there? I think there's going to be something for everybody on this one. I mean, Anderson's good, but we're talking about Manchester City, so Manchester City would be what's the word for it? Manchester City would be signing other players as well. I'd say regarding Tonali, says Willis said better. I don't like a player signing a contract one summer, wanting to leave the next. What happens if we don't make Champions League? Too much noise with Tonali for me. And yeah, that's fair. That's a fair point. That's a fair point. I'm going to say, based on what I've seen, people have different opinions, but based on what I've seen, I think Anderson. When I've watched Forest or watched Newcastle, I think Anderson's been better. That's all I'm saying. But it's again, maybe for you, you can make your judgment call as well, which you think is the best option. I mean, based on the chat and the votes, too many's winning. But maybe if we did an Anderson versus Tonali vote, I'd imagine it might be somewhat similar. So yeah, if you're looking at Believe It, Alex Scott, too many, and Co Mainoo, I don't think we could complain too much with that. I don't think there'd be much room for complaint if we had that one. No, there's different reasons, isn't there? Everyone's got different issues as well. Um, Welcome to the chat. Saying Con says we need an engine beast that can dribble as well. I think that's Belieber, isn't it? If you're looking for someone that can physically dribble, that's powerful on the ball, I think that is basically Belieber you're talking about. I'm just trying to think of other examples that meet that. I mean, Mainoo does look very good in terms of like Cody Mainoo's like glides on the ball rather than beast modes through midfield. But if you want someone that can dribble through, that is physical, that does have like actually the ability to pick out passes out the dribble as well, something Belieber did very well a couple of years ago. I think that's probably his skill set. So again, it's a different profile, and all these players are a bit different. Like none of these players are exactly the same. Let's say betting scandal. Yeah, I was going to say to people, I did say post some good things about Tonali, but you've made really good arguments to not buy Tonali. So again, people that want Tonali, you need to like put some better. You need to make your argument. So no, it is definitely one. So unfortunately, Anderson favours Man City, and he's the best option or the best of lots as Mazunan. Yeah, that's why we haven't been talking too much about Anderson recently because we have to be realistic and say it doesn't look like he's going to go join Man United. So no, and I think that Danny and other people have been saying that they like Sangare, like Bawadi, but again, Manchester United are not necessarily going to go for too many non-Premier League players. Fernandez could be an option. I think he stays. I think he stays or moves for very big money though if West Ham stay up. So Sangari's up there as well. Sangari is potentially quite cheap. He might be one player that someone takes a gamble on, gets him in the Premier League, and then we start looking like Turkey. Like Turkey, we discussed for ages last season, and there's no surprise that Turkey's done quite well at City. Yeah, we'll probably take some. Say, yeah, Premier League players are something we want though. 100%. Um, a big to you, Stephanie. Good to see you, Stephanie. You pay up to 60 million for Fernandez. Yeah, I think with Fernandez, if West Ham stay up, I don't think 60 million gets the deal done. So I think if West Ham stay up, I can't remember the price, but didn't West Ham spend like 45 plus million on him about a year ago? So if West Ham don't get relegated, I think they want 70 million. I don't think they're going to look at that as being a sensible business, like sensible move for them. They're going to keep him at the club. I'm sure he's under contract for like another 4 years, so I don't think we're going to be seeing um, any sort of. No, I don't think we're going to be seeing that sort of deal happen for United. Well, we'll see though. You never know, do you? Because Manchester United, it's not like we have done this sort of thing in the past. And so, what's the price for this guy as well? I'm sure I read somewhere that they say what Sangari's 40 million. So I thought it was a bit cheaper, but yeah, say still a 50 to 55. Yeah, I think it's minimum of 50, isn't it? So minimum of 50 for Stiller, and West Ham could want 70 plus. If West Ham get relegated, there's apparently a clause for 34, in which case it becomes very interesting. Yeah. Now, if you want him, Gaz, you want West Ham to get relegated, then it's I believe it's like 34 million pounds would be the price, which does seem a bit crazy because I'm sure they bought him for more than that a year ago. So if that is true, it wouldn't make a lot of sense business wise. But it might just be you have to put these clauses in. Someone described, say, the Believer signing as a tap in. It could be, couldn't it? Mark said you'd like Stiller. Believer's a tap in signing. So I think United are genuinely looking at. It's almost like we were. There's a couple of transfers. I think we're waiting to see whether Angela Stiller actually wants to join Manchester United and whether Manchester United actually are interested in him. Like if the Vel can push it that way. So yeah, 45 million. That's why I was saying it seems surprising that he can leave West Ham for 34 million if they get relegated because that would be I don't know. It'd be you sign a player for 45, works out really well, then you actually take a bit of a hit. So it would be pretty disappointing for West Ham if that did happen. I mean, I think West Ham stay up, but it's close, isn't it? It's really close. It took a very late goal to avoid Spurs pretty much overtaking them last weekend. So with 4 games to go, West Ham's fixtures are quite difficult. I'd say that they haven't got the best run in, so really tricky. It's such a shame we don't have West Ham versus Spurs last day of the season. That would be such a good game to watch. I think West Ham take Spurs on current form as well. That would be a good one. There was a question about Aston Villa, was there? I'll big up to you, Ollie, in the chat. Says you want Premier League experience, you want Belieber, you want Scott and Fernandez, and say 60 million each. Well, I think actually say 60 million each. I think you can get, yeah, I think you can get Scott for slightly less than that. Well, I mean, maybe maybe as an average, you're not far off actually. So as an average, 60 million pound signings, that's 180. We could bring in like 100 million, couldn't we, in sales? So I don't mind that actually. In terms of that, you've got three different players there. Kind of exciting actually. That's quite a young midfield. So with Mainoo, you got four very young players. The only thing I'd look at is if you could take one of them out and put someone like too many in, who would you go for? I would probably go for a Scott out of those three because I think the Bleib offers something different. I think Fernandez is different as well, but it's tricky. And I don't think that would be a bad option. But that would be like a real kind of not a gamble, but it would be a real change from what we've done in the past in terms of the age of players. So yeah, that would be quite good. I'm not even thinking of. I don't even consider Arsenal fans. I think West Ham actually do play Arsenal, don't they? So they've got some difficult games, like really difficult games. Welcome to the chat. I'm just trying to check the name. I'm probably get his name wrong. Sorry, but um, Banchan, welcome to the chat. Says Adam Wharton also good. Actually, one of the moderators. I don't know if Ryan's still in the comments, but one of the moderators on this channel is a massive fan of Adam Wharton. But because we don't always get Adam Wharton stories, we don't talk about him too much because at the moment we don't really know what's likely to happen with him. But I think most people were thinking maybe Liverpool he would go there possibly. Yeah, there you go. Ryan is a big fan. So yeah, Adam Wharton. The good news about Adam Wharton is potentially the price is only 65 million, and apparently I don't want to use this word because if you remember last season, this was like kind of the phrase that really got loads and loads of problems with Gyökeres. But apparently there's a gentleman's agreement at Crystal Palace. This is what I've heard that he can go for 60 to 65 in the summer. So this was kind of discussed about, I don't know, about a year ago. So I don't know if that's the case. If it is the case, I can see it being not straightforward because, yeah, that's a problem. You are indeed the only Man United fan that likes Anthony Gordon. I think that is absolutely fine. That's absolutely fine. So everybody's allowed different views. You like Anthony Gordon, you like Wharton. That's absolutely fine as well. So not a problem at all. Fernandez has played everywhere from centre back, centre midfield, attacking midfield, left winger for West Ham. It's only 21. It's got four man of the match awards in a row. He's definitely, I'll say this Fernandez and Alex Scott are definitely two midfielders that honestly, the last couple of months have emerged from like the kind of shadows in terms of like, United are talking about Belieber, Wharton, Tonali, and I think Alex Scott and Matheus Fernandez, I don't know if it's just us fans or whether there's some truth in it as well, but they are definitely suddenly emerging as really good options. And I think with Fernandez, because he's played like multiple positions, it's a versatility thing that Man United like. But I think my view is this. I don't know what you think, but when you get players that can play multiple positions and do well in multiple positions, for me, it's just an indication that there's actually a better quality football player. So I don't think you have football players that are necessarily, oh, this player's more versatile. I think you have better quality football players, and the players that can play multiple positions well, like someone like a Wayne Rooney, like Mainoo, Raheem Skulls, I think they are just better quality players. And and again, if we're going to buy multiple players, the reason why you go for Premier League tested, the only reason for this is going to be just how quick do you actually hit the ground running. Like, and when we hit the ground running, Cunha take a little bit of time. Benjamin Sesko's taking a bit of time. Dorgu took a little bit of time. Yora's taking a bit of time. But players hit the ground running a bit quicker if you're doing that, a bit quicker. Yeah. Now, West Ham might not contemplate getting relegated though, but West Ham are a team that I suppose can't you can't rule it out though, can you? Because it only takes one or two teams to come up from the Championship, play well, and it's not easy to stay in the Premier League. If this is a general question, what players do I not want to sign? I don't want to sign Gordon. I don't want to sign Rafael Leao. Who else is linked that I don't want to sign? I'm quite relaxed with midfield signings, but no, Anthony Gordon. We'll disagree. Me and Berber will disagree on this one. I don't want to sign Anthony Gordon. Rafael Leao I think is too injury prone. I'm trying to think who else there is. Most midfield players I'm kind of relaxed by. I'm not overly obsessed by any particular one midfield target. I think we need to get three players in, and in which case I think there's maybe some options I prefer. I don't really want to sign. Let's see who else is linked. I think the problem that I've got here is that most of the players we're linked to are quite good. So I don't mind if we sign Van Hecker. I don't really mind if we sign. I feel like Murillo was linked. He's quite good. I don't want to sign Vlahovic, so I'll say that I wouldn't want to sign Vlahovic when he was linked to us. I'm not. I don't know. I'm not so keen on Nico Williams, but I think he's actually quite expensive, isn't he? I don't. Victor Osimhen is actually playing quite badly this season, isn't he? So I'm trying to think who else I don't want to sign. Who else is linked? If for some reason we don't manage to sell Agate, would you play him in the Champions League? I don't know. I don't know. If we don't manage to sell Agate, um, I don't know. It's a difficult problem, isn't it? Because I think the Champions League. I would say Agate. I play him in the Champions League against not the best opposition, possibly. I think he would be like. I think it depends. I think I would be looking at Agate as someone like that could maybe do some minutes, but I would probably say I don't know. I don't think he's good enough for Manchester United, so it's a struggle. But I certainly wouldn't be starting him in Premier League games. If I had to reshuffle the squad, I would maybe put Agate in the Carabao Cup, and maybe he could. I don't know. It just wouldn't be as a ball boy. It's an expensive ball boy, but I think yeah. No, I didn't see that, Chris. I didn't see how he did against England. No, I was just trying to think of that question about players I don't want to sign. There's not loads of options out there at the moment. I don't think there's honestly. I don't think there's a lot of options that we're linked to that are really bad. I think Rafael Leao feels like the worst one. I think the other one is going to be, yeah, like I said, that other player would be quite disappointing. Like Anthony Gordon, I just question Anthony Gordon's attitude more than anything. Yeah, one of Stiller or Anderson, Buardi or Stiller, Belieber or Gume, you'd be very happy with Isabella. I would say the same. Like if we got Fernandez or as an option as well, I think Buardi or Stiller is a good one, isn't it? I kind of think with if you're going to go for if you're going to go for maybe Buardi, who's a bit younger, I'd go for Belieber, who's Premier League experienced. So I'd go for that. I'd probably go too many Belieber plus Buardi out of those lists if I had to pick one. I think Angela still is like highly rated, but I think Buardi's got a higher ceiling. So it's tricky, like really tricky, isn't it? It's one of these things, isn't it? If we have a conversation, everybody's going to disagree about something. But again, I think that the transfers overall, there's a lot of positives. So there's a lot of good options. So even the options that people that mention and say, Funchy says you would have Welbeck back. You'd rather have Welbeck back than get Vlahovic. I would agree. I think Vlahovic would be on a big contract. He'd be expensive. Danny Welbeck's a finisher, isn't he? He's doing really well for Brighton. I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind having Welbeck back as a squad option, but it wouldn't be expensive. That would be the view. So looking at the poll, I just wanted to get people's views. So we did a poll by popular demand. We compared too many with Tonali. The results were quite good for too many, but Tonali does get a decent percentage. So it was like 54 for too many, 39% for Tonali, and neither was like very, very low. I don't know who voted for neither, but no, not a landslide victory. Quite yeah, you can't really say it's 50-50. It's like 54-40. So it's quite close. Like there is a bit of preference towards too many. I would say this that there was definitely more people in the comments putting positives for too many, and I was probably favouring too many. So a lot of quite a high percentage for Tonali, which is interesting. Like quite a lot of this one. And so, yeah, I would say Arsenal might have been just as good getting Danny Welbeck as Gyökeres. But and also, I was making this point recently that sometimes Man United have missed out on a top target. And last season, it feels like every top target we missed out on was actually a flop. So you look at we missed out on Delap. He did nothing at Chelsea. We moved on Garnacho. He did nothing at Chelsea. We moved, like Sancho left. He did nothing. Rashford did okay at Real Madrid, but sorry, at Barcelona. But looking at the other players, we missed out on Gyökeres. I think Sesko got more goals than Gyökeres, or is it the same? But no, I don't think it's a problem really. And to kind of clarify with the stream as well, I did say I favoured too many. If Manchester United got Tonali, I'd be 100% behind the deal. I'd be like thinking, okay, this is that Tonali has to prove he could step up to Manchester United's level because we want to be a lot more consistent than Newcastle are, and we want to be trying to push towards competing for more trophies. So again, it is like the expectation would be that Tonali then improves as well. So Mark said he'd be happy with either. I'm also happy with either. That is true. You say you find Sesko the same level of Gyökeres. Gyökeres is about 3 or 4 years older. Is Gyökeres like 20? How old's Gyökeres? But Gyökeres has been playing for Coventry in the Championship, playing for a few years in Sporting, and then coming back to the Premier League. And didn't he play in the Premier League? Or I'm trying. Who did Gyökeres play for in the Premier League? So I think he played for a Premier League team. Didn't work out. Went to the Championship, put in the time at Coventry was according to Jules, who is a regular host. Actually, Jules is going to be hosting tonight, 10 p.m. So there's going to be a late night stream. So Jules has got family that support Coventry. He said he was good at Coventry, did obviously amazing at Sporting Lisbon, and now he comes full circle back to the Premier League. I can't remember where he played. I was going to guess Brighton, but I don't know if it's more than one club. He might have been loaned out, but I think Brighton might have been where he was. But it didn't really work out for him. I can't remember how many games he got. But then he's come back to the Premier League. I was going to guess he's 27. I think he is about 27. So Benjamin Sesko is several years younger than Gyökeres and playing in a bit of a dysfunctional team at the start of the season. I think he's better. Like Gyökeres I think Gyökeres is a bit more like I don't want to say he's like Lukaku, but I think Gyökeres is one of these players that if he can use his physicality against weaker defenders and play against that, he needs kind of space to run into. I don't think Gyökeres has got as many ways of scoring as Sesko. So in the air, Sesko's better. I think link up play, Sesko's better. I've seen Gyökeres get isolated. I have seen that with Sesko as well, but I think there's a higher ceiling for Sesko, and we got lucky, I think, because Arsenal replaced their technical director or their sporting director, and their old sporting director wanted to get Sesko. So the reason why Sesko took a long time was because Arsenal were looking at Sesko, they were going to buy him, and then they changed their sporting director. The new guy came in, he wanted Gyökeres, and it kind of evolved from there. So I think we got lucky that, in my view, based on like we saw the goal last night as well. We've seen headed goals, we've seen great finishes, we've seen some like unbelievable like back to the goal kind of like finishes as well. We've seen Sesko finish different goals like tap ins and other things. I think stats wise, it might be kind of similar a little bit, but you've got to appreciate that Arsenal were a team that were in a title race for the last 2 years, and we finished 15th. So we've kind of like edged Sesko in gently. That Sesko's been on the bench a lot. He's like gradually come in. I think that 2 years time, Sesko will be like 2 years time. We might be seeing Sesko's levels better than Gyökeres. He's got one goal off Ollie Watkins, and Ollie Watkins was the alternative signing. And Ollie Watkins, like in a couple of years' time, will not be as good as Sesko. Probably another year, guess Mark. It must be something like that. Yeah, exactly, Gaz. Exactly. Did well at Coventry, and like Jules will be hosting tonight, and I think his partner side were Coventry fans, so he was well aware of his work at Coventry. But no, he was a good player there. Funshu says, yeah, so somebody made a comment yesterday. I can't remember who it was. Somebody this morning posted actually. So I just want to give a bit of feedback to people in the comments. that somebody joined the channel in the comments this morning. It's a Leeds fan, and he was very complimentary about people in the comments on this channel, like really complimentary, saying that you guys know your stuff. But everybody's got an interest in football. But like Funshu saying you've been following Fernandez since he was playing Southampton. There'll be other people that have followed like Gyökeres for years, and I think it's quite good that people are going to be putting information out here that's going to be yeah. I would say Luman that everybody's going to have different personalities, but yeah, they're both going to be important guests on this channel. So Fernandez Southampton has played quite a few positions as well. Yeah, no, I think that's why we like him. Versatility, really good. Gyökeres, yeah. If you look at Nunes at Liverpool, Gyökeres at Arsenal, the Portuguese league is definitely a bit of a statistical anomaly. So if you look at how many goals you score in that league, you've almost got to divide it by like three or four to go into the Premier League. So the fact he did what he did in Sporting Lisbon was decent. That is very impressive. But my view is always going to be he's probably going to be getting similar amount of goals to Ollie Watkins over the last few years. Like he's going to be, he should be top 10 goal scorer in the Premier League, but he's not going to suddenly be levels above everything else. It's going to be it's going to be there or thereabouts with like some decent Premier League strikers, but it's not. I don't think the sky's the limit for Gyökeres. I think he's going to be that sort of level. So I don't mind. Say, Sporting did us a favour by scamming Arsenal. Yeah, I think maybe Ruben Amorim did it as well because I think there's a combination of not getting Champions League football, a combination of the head coach. I don't think he wanted to play for you for Amorim or Manchester United. There's some reason, but it didn't really matter. So it doesn't matter too much, to be honest. So what I should do, this is I'm going to be I'll wrap the stream up in a couple of minutes. So I'll finish on the streams are quite long at the moment, but they will be gradually getting shorter. But tonight we because Jules is going to do a 10 p.m. stream, I'm not sure there'll be anything else until then. So if you're around at 10 p.m., which is quite late, but we're going to try and miss the Champions League matches tonight and tomorrow. So if you're around at 10 p.m., which is quite late UK time, but probably really good if you're in a different part of the world. Then Jules will be hosting tonight. There may be there may be guests on. I'm not sure, but it depends on who's available. Amrin, yeah, I think say something positive about Ruben Amrin. He did at least like fitness level seemed to improve in the club as well. No, I agree. I don't rule out players until so he had a nice beard. He missed Dora's accent. Well, Dora will be on soon, hopefully. But people are busy, so people are just not available. Kieran wasn't available for about 6 months, but now he was back last night. No, any sort of final points? Like I want to end on a positive for Tonali because 39% of people said they'd take Tonali over too many, and I can't find anyone in the comments that's going to put some positives out there. So Portuguese league, yeah, the Portuguese league is definitely yeah, definitely. I think it's probably. I think one thing that was maybe a bit strange was Gyökeres didn't go from the Championship to the Premier League, and maybe it's because he went to the Premier League first and it didn't work out. Possibly tricky. I think fitness level of the team overall went up. That's one thing as well. But yeah, beyond that, I'm struggling. I'll yeah, so I wouldn't say too much positive, but I would say potentially fitness level of the team improved. But that's me being like quite nice as well. Bilal says Tonali controls the midfield and say that to be honest, I did watch Newcastle against was it Aston Villa in the FA Cup, and he did score a good goal. So he has got a finish, so he could potentially be that as well. And so why all of a sudden is Tonali not our first choice? I don't think Tonali was ever our first choice. I think he was there if we couldn't get Anderson. And I think too many is like our first choice because too many is actually a better football player overall. But that don't I would just say don't rule out anybody. Like don't rule out anyone as well. Was that Amrin or United's new medical team? I think the medical team's independent. I think Amram. I can't say 100%, but I think the medical team was independent already, so difficult to say. I think so. So difficult to say. Yeah, I suppose one thing could be like Ruben Amrin did have like some standards, I guess, in terms of what he wanted from the players, but then yeah, but then I suppose he didn't really make the best of the players that were left. I think the one thing I didn't really like is I think if you want the players to play for you, maybe insulting them publicly didn't really work out too well. So yeah, so it's independent. So Emma doesn't take credit. Okay, there you go. In that case, I think Ganacho is the like getting rid of Ganacho is the thing we can say thank you to Ruben Amorim for. That's about it. So no, I think that's fair. So let's leave it on that for that one. But no, positives about positives about Tonali is he's not Agate. There you go. So he's not Agate. He'll play at a high level. It potentially weakens Newcastle, which is if you can weaken them much more than they have been this season. That's another point as well. But no, thanks for watching. If you want to get involved in the Discord group, there's a pinned link, the Facebook group as well that Cody kind of runs as well, postings there as well. If you want to tune in tonight, depending on where you are in the UK, 10 p.m. tonight, Jules will be hosting. It might be a solo stream. He might have some guests on. It depends on availability and people. But yeah, thanks for getting involved. It's always appreciated. Thanks for getting some good comments and questions in. And if you haven't subscribed, then everything's free. So just do that because then you can get involved in football debates on a daily basis. And we'll be back. Actually, the sun's come out. I moaned this morning because it was really dark and grey, but the sun's come out. So I'm going to go outside for a little bit. I actually touched some grass, unlike people that think Co-Main is too slow for Manchester United. And we'll be back late tonight for a big stream of Jules. So take it easy, guys.